Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's video. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you can create your own investor long list. This is a question I get quite often from founders because they say, hey, I don't have a network of investors I can talk to. But in my opinion, it's really important for every kind of fundraise that your long list of investors is big enough so that you can talk to a lot of investors at the same time. And in this video, I'm going to cover some basics in the beginning, and then I show you exactly how I would source investors for my startup. So let's start with some basics. There are two types of investors that are most relevant for you as an early stage founder. On the one hand, we have angel investors that are often entrepreneurs themselves, and they invest their own money that they earn through their own exit, their own companies. And as you can imagine, this money is very, very limited. So most angels invest somewhere between 20K to, I don't know, a few 100K, but there's a big cap at these numbers. And this is the reason also why most angel investors invest in pre-seed and seed stages. Obviously, there are also some angels that invest in later stage, but most angels like to invest early. And on the other hand, we have VC investors. They are not investing their own money, but they are investing the money of other people. They are limited partners. You have investors, VC investors across all stages and all deal sizes, meaning from pre-seed to Series B, Series C, and they invest somewhere between a few 100K to many, many millions into specific deals. And the important part about VC investors is they all have a specific thesis. That means they are very specific about the deals that they invest in. And the specificness comes from the stage. So some investors only invest in pre-seed and seed companies. Some only invest into Series B companies. And the reason for this is the amount of money that they can invest for every single deal. So the check size, but also the size of their personal fund. The second thing is the industry. So as you can imagine, some are only doing deals in healthcare, some are just doing deals in education. Geography is also really important. Some investors only invest in Germany, some in France, but there are obviously also some investors that invest all across the world. Business model can also be part of the thesis. So some investors only invest into software as a service companies, while other investors only invest in marketplaces. And you can learn more about the thesis of a specific VC investor if you take a look at their website. So make sure that the company that you are building suits this kind of investment thesis, because otherwise your outreach to them will be useless. Before we dive into looking at how we can source investors, one quick thought. So one check can lead to another one. What do I mean by that? So imagine you are running a fundraise and you are taking the first checks on board. So for example, a 20K angel check here. Angels often come in groups. So maybe this person brings other persons to the table that invest 50K each. But on the other hand, you can also have, for example, an angel that brings another angel, and this person only invests 5K into your deal. But maybe their introduction can lead to a $1 million check from a VC investor. What I want to say with that is be open to any kind of check sizes and make sure that you use the network of the people that you already persuaded to invest into your deal, because obviously they are most likely to tell other people about that and then bring them onto your deal. And this is how every good fundraise looks like. But enough said, let's dive into how you can actually find investors. So my first go-to destination would be fellow founders and entrepreneurs. So I would ask every other founder that I know, hey, can you suggest any kind of investors that I should talk to? We are thinking about running a fundraise. And if you have good introductions, I would highly appreciate that. But also you can ask in your network of people who have already raised, hey, which kind of investors did you talk to and what do you think about them? So this is really, really important. Use the network that you already have. Second up is platforms. So one example would be OpenVC, and I will show you in a second how that looks like. Okay, so OpenVC is a platform that you can use to research VC investors. There are over 5,000 records in the database, and you can really take a look at the check size, the target countries, the funding stages. This is what we talked about earlier in this video around thesis. So let's imagine I'm a software as a service company. I can type that in here. I can tell them that my company is in Germany, and we are looking for someone who invests into prototype and early revenue stages, and the check size should be somewhere between 0 and 1 million. And if I'm taking a look at this, I get a list of 22 results. So all of these investors invest into exactly this type of company. And now I can take these investors, put them into my long list, and then reach out to them through a cold email, through an intro. But we will cover that in another video. Obviously, there are also other platforms that you can use. One example is Crunchbase. So let's imagine I'm building a company in the education space. This could be a competitor of mine or another company that is active in that space. So OnDeck is also doing founder education, and I can type them into Crunchbase, and then I can see, hey, 36 investors are listed for OnDeck here. I can take a look at the different rounds that they did. And for example, in their Series A round, they have 30 investors on board. So I can click on that. And then I have a list of not only VC funds, but also individuals that invested into the round. And I can take this information as an estimate that, for example, Scott Belsky here is interested in investing into education companies. And so I can put him into my long list and maybe also reach out to him. The third way of finding investors is around funding announcement. So I think this is a really, really underestimated way to find investors for your own company. So let's imagine we are running a company in the fintech space. And Vauban here, they are saying, hey, we raised 6.3 million. And this article was published on TechCrunch. And if I take a close look at this kind of funding announcement, I can search for more information on who invested into the company. And as I can see, there's some information about the VC investors that invested into the company. But also, as you can see, the investment round was also joined by some fellow angels. And you can see some names here. And you will find most of this information in any kind of funding announcement, really. So you can also take this to create a long list of your investors. Another example I wanted to show you on LinkedIn. So Marius is a co-founder of an education venture as well. And he did a fundraising announcement on LinkedIn. And as you can see, he tagged a lot of the angels that invested into the company. This is what most of the founders who are announcing these kind of rounds do. And this is also really a great way to find angels for my own company. So I can take this funding announcement and then use it as a way to create my own long list. Another way to use LinkedIn for your own investor long list is you can search for business angel, for example, around here. And as you can see, there are 2.9 million results of people who say they are business angels. Obviously, you have to make sure that you filter them accordingly and only reach out to them if you think they are relevant to your business. But this is also a way to create your long list. So, for example, I'm looking for business angels, and I can say these business angels should be in Germany. So from the results that I had before, 3 million, now we are down to 56,000. And now I could also say, hey, I only want to talk to people who I know myself through first-hand connection or a second-hand connection. So I always talked about 1, 2, and 3 here, and number 4, but they are like more ways to find investors. So events and local investor groups are also very relevant. Just as an example, there are a lot of conferences. For example, this is DASTOC, Software as a Service conference. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of investors that are going to these kind of conferences. So on the landing page here, you can see 400 investors are joining the conference. And from time to time, you can also download some participation lists, so people who are joining the conference. But obviously, you can also go to the conference yourself and talk to a lot of these investors. And last but not least, there are also local groups that you can tap into. So for example, I just typed into Google New York Business Angels, and there's this kind of group of people with over 140 investors, all angels in New York. And you have most of these groups in bigger cities. So for example, in Berlin, there's also a business angel club, but you will have the same in San Francisco, in London. So make sure to tap into that as well. And final word. So these are just 6 ideas on how to create a long list for your investor outreach, but obviously there are millions of other ways you can do that. So make sure to be creative, and the most important thing that you should take from this video is be relevant to the investors you are putting on your long list, and then you are really good to go with your fundraise.